Okay, we've got 1 minute to kick off. Yeah. And Councillor Ladwick, yeah, welcome.
Hello.
Okay, well, not quite 3 o'clock, so we'll wait. We'll give it that minute. Okay, welcome everybody and call the meeting of the Special Committee of the Whole for the budget of March 29, 2022 to order at 3 p.m. and acknowledge we're meeting on the unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome staff and members of the public who've taken time to join us. We appreciate that. I'll call the meeting to order. We have an agenda in front of us, so if I could ask for approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwick, thank you. All in favor? Agenda approved. We have 2 items on this agenda, and the first one is the budget consultation feedback, and that's on pages 5 to 8. And this is from the meeting we had online last week. And the second one is the preliminary general operations and capital budget from the Director of Finance. So the feedback piece is there. I see my name is attached to it, but I thought it was, in my view, a good meeting. I think that it's always nice to have more members of the public, but it identifies 21 of the members of the public, including media, came out. Far better turnout than we've had in many previous years. So I think this is a formula that we should continue to use for this and other kinds of meetings. I think there's ways to do meetings better and ways to consult better. And I think this is just one tool that we can continue to use as we go forward during the year. And I think we should look at times to do that, whether it's strategic plan review or other things that we sit down and we give opportunity for the public to talk directly to ourselves and directly to our staff. And I think that's something that should be done more than just at budget time. There's nothing really to be done in that. I guess if council has any comments about the report itself that's being presented by staff. I appreciate the record that was created, and take a motion to receive it. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Lumley, all in favor of receipt? Thank you. Any comments arising from it, councillors? Councillor Lumley?
It was unfortunate that I missed it. I apologize, but I thought it was interesting when I read it. It's a lot of the questions that the public had were kind of questions that council had.
Yes.
In the budget debate. So it was kind of interesting at that point.
Good. Yeah. Okay, seeing nothing further on this, let's move on then to the 2022 preliminary budget update number 3. And for that, we'll look. Before I do that, I just want to thank staff for putting this record together for us, and for also, I know we said it on the night, but for being there to help us through this process and to participate in the conversations. Very important to do that. So thank you. Councillor Deirdre.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like just to make an observation. I think it's great to have the question, but it would be for someone that couldn't come to the meetings and did not participate at these specific meetings. It would be nice to have the answers. So I felt that for whoever participated, they got the full answers, but it's just like the questions raised, but what are the answers for the questions? So I think it would be a good idea to have next time.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, Director of Finance, we'll call upon you now to present the report on the 2022 preliminary budget update. And first of all, I'll ask for a receipt of the report. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwick, thank you. All in favor of receipt? Thank you very much. Director of Finance, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So this report is to provide an update on the status of the budget discussions to date And so the revised preliminary general operations budget was presented last week at the March 22nd Committee of the Whole. And that version reflected a 2% tax increase and a revised surplus of just over $192,000. That same meeting, the general capital and projects budget was also presented, and that required a total of just over $274,000 of taxation funding. And that's the funding that augments the other funding sources available for all the projects that are on the list. And as you remember, committee discussed at that time and made several changes. And on page 2 of my report, I'm listing the changes that were made and that have been incorporated into this version. So there was an increase of the active transportation plan project budget up from $40,000 to $50,000. And that was really so we could fully maximize the potential grant funding that's going to be coming available. We increased the council wanted us to increase the DPA2 project budget from 25 to 40,000, and also moved the dog park fencing project from 2022 to 2023. And so those changes, they did result, they had sort of a no net result on taxation funding. They, the minuses countered the pluses, and it came out that overall taxation funding for the 2022 projects is still $274,000, so no change there. If the committee doesn't make any changes today, then the additional tax increase required to bring to fund everything would be an additional 2.2%. So that would bring it up to 4.2 overall for both operations, as well as funding some capital. The effect of that percentage on an average residential household, which is just over or just under 830,000 this year, is an increase of $49.75. And that's really those very specific to the completed roll. So that number will change based on the revised roll, which we're hoping to get in a few days. And so that's just a brief update of sort of where discussions are at and where the lists are at. The goal of today's meeting is to receive, council, the committee to review the final lists, and then to receive staff to receive recommendations on the overall tax increase that you want to authorize. And then what I do then is I prepare for the final budget presentation, but I also then prepare the financial plan and the tax rate bylaws. And so one of the items I did want to also get feedback on council committee today was that the next steps include, so next steps basically are any recommendations committee makes today go to the April 5th council meeting, which is next Tuesday. And that would be the final staff direction. And then if we stick to the same schedule as last year, the final budget presentation would be on April 12th at 7 p.m. And so that's a public information session. It's not a meeting. It's like basically a virtual version of an open house. And that would be on the next Tuesday and at 7 o'clock. So I would just want council's committee's confirmation that you're okay with that date. And then, like I said, I would then bring the financial plan, tax rate bylaws to the April 19th meeting for 3 readings, and then we do final by May the 3rd. So a fair bit to get through today. So I'll leave it there and wait for questions on ops or capital projects. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. And we know where we are now. Now, I guess I know that during the course of this past week, there's been some questions arisen, and I'll turn that over to council to ask those questions now of you directly again, Director of Finance.
Sure.
Councillor Ledwig.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director of Finance. As you both know, I sent an email out earlier this week asking about whether or not, or the feasibility of a couple of the projects that are currently tagged for increase in taxation being covered by our gas tax fund. And since then, we've also received an email from the public about questioning whether or not DCCs could be used for certain things. And so I just like to run through a few of these kind of items, and hopefully Director of Finance can answer them for me. So, so I'm curious about whether or not the gas tax fund can be used for the Dougal Park equipment upgrades, as well as the drainage improvements, and possibly the Glassford Road traffic calming project. Now, ideally, I'd like to see the traffic calming project on Glassford Road covered by the transportation planning study. And depending on how this conversation goes, I might make a motion that it be covered out of that as a first choice, and that during further analysis and work this year for the other projects that are supposed to be covered under that grant, that if it is not deemed possible, then perhaps a gas tax fund. But so for right now, the question I'm asking is, can the Dougal Park equipment, the drainage improvements, and possibly the Glassford Road project be funded by the gas tax fund?
Thank you, Councillor. And Director of Finance, are you prepared to answer?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I did have I appreciate the heads up on the questions. I gave me a couple of days to reach out to the department that administers the gas tax funding. And so I do have some good news. Not everything's covered, but most of them are. So the drainage improvements, the $19,000. So that project is a combination of installing 2 trash racks in Sharman Creek, as well as removing a leaning block retaining wall where Sharman crosses under Gower Point. And if both of those pieces are done together, then that would qualify for gas tax. If they're done separately, part of it will, part of it wouldn't, but I've been directed that if that whole project goes as one, then that would be covered under the gas tax. And that's under it's actually interestingly, it's under, they have a wastewater category, but the wastewater also includes a drainage subsection category. So that one, like I said, if it's both at the same time as one project, would be eligible. The Dougal Park project playground equipment is not eligible because that's the removal of playground equipment, and the gas tax, one of the eligibility requirements is that a capital asset be constructed or installed as part of the project. So the Dougal Park playground repair does not qualify. The Glassford Road traffic calming, it does qualify. It's not under the active transportation category or umbrella. It is eligible under local roads. And again, it's because the feedback I got was that speed cushions and the planters are considered capital assets, so that would qualify. The other one, as I was talking to the administrator, I thought I would just reach out on the Gower Point traffic calming options as well, just in case that came up today. And I checked with that, and that one really is, surprisingly, it's also eligible in case council wants to choose to fund gas tax for that as well. And that one's under a capacity building envelope about long-term infrastructure planning. So although there's no capital assets there, it is a form of long-term planning, so that that would be an option as well. So it does give you some room from a gas tax point of view. I just do want to point out that we do plan gas tax over 5 years. And so looking at over the 5 years, we draw down quite a bit. The lowest point we draw down is in 2023 at $75,000. So if council chose today to allocate more than $75,000 of gas tax, it throws off the 5-year planning a little bit, and it'd have to adjust 2023's road rehab. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at as you're looking at 2023's gas tax allocation. And I can pause there and then answer the DCC questions later, if you like.
Yeah, how much? What's the dollar value of those 2 projects, Director, on Glassford and Gower Point?
Glassford and Gower Point. So those 2 are. Hang on, I've just got a. I'm just trying to find my mouse. Where is it? There we go. Those 2 are. Well, funnily enough, they're 75,000. So yeah, those 2 are 75. If you add in the drainage one, that brings it up to 94. So that's where it gets a bit tricky from a 5-year planning point of view.
The drainage, that's for the drainage for gas tax as well, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but if you don't do drainage and just do Glassford and Gower Point in gas tax, that basically cleans out the gas tax fully, and it reduces the additional tax increase down to like 0.2%. So basically pretty much covers that.
But the impact on 2023 then would be increased taxation to cover those where the gas tax would have been used. Is that the interpretation?
No, that one just, so what that would do
Okay.
then is it would basically draw the gas tax down to 0 in 2023. And right now the balance in 2023 is projected to be 75. So we're then fully drawing it down. So no
Okay.
issue, no issue. It's just that would be the timing if council
Okay.
went past 75.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So we have 75,000, of which the Glassford Road project and the Gower Point Road project would in total come to 75. And the additional 19,000 would not be covered under the gas tax.
That's right.
Councillor Ludwig?
Perhaps we should also, if the Director of Finance is willing, move on to the DCC conversation, because I also am curious about whether or not one or both of these could be covered by DCC, which then might free up some money for the drainage from gas tax. So maybe we should move on to that portion of the conversation as well.
Sure. Okay. So the Director of Infrastructure oversees a DCC program. So, but in his absence, I can field those questions. So there's been one of the questions was there any change to the DCC program since 2018? And no, there hasn't. You'll notice on the 2022 capital projects, one of the items is the DCC bylaw update. That's row 22, and that's a project for this year. And so that would be the next update, assuming that project goes ahead, that will update the program. When we look at DCC, when we look at the 5-year capital plan, we look at all different funding sources. So we're looking at a 5-year window. And so the full 5 years is considered when we allocate DCCs. In this context, it's specific to road DCCs. And the projected funding, I'm just looking, it's on page 3 of the big spreadsheet that provides the 5-year capital plan. There's a road DCC section, and the bulk of the DCCs, we're budgeted to spend $650,000 in road DCCs this year, and that basically clears out the DCC balance we have on hand. And so there's not a lot of wiggle room without sort of then going back and relooking at every other DCC project we have funded this year to move that money around. And that's not something that I could do in the time we have, because like I said, the Director of Infrastructure oversees the DCC program, and they're very specific as to what projects can be funded. So that's a more challenging change to make at this stage. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Okay. The $75,000 reduction, if we take the gas tax money and apply that to Glassford Road and Gower Point Road, you mentioned that would result in then a 0.2% increase over the 2%, or what does that leave us with?
Yeah, so what that, sorry, Mr. Mayor, what that does was it basically, so right now, the way the sheets were in the agenda is the total taxation funded needed was $274,750. If we take out the Glassford Road, if we fund the Glassford Road project with gas tax, that's 41,000 taxation we don't need. And then Gower Point, that's 34. So that brings the total taxation funding required for this year at $199,750. And so that's just about $7,000 over the existing taxation funding we have available from the operation surplus. So at this point, a 0.2% tax increase would be needed. So then overall, instead of a 4.2% tax increase needed, council would need to authorize a 2.2 tax increase.
I like that. Yeah, that's certainly getting it down to something that I think that is bearable in the community, especially as we've mentioned before, we're still in a recovery and we don't know how that recovery is going to go with COVID. There's still indications out there that COVID is not gone and that we still may have to retrench on that. So, yeah. Any others, Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish, and to the Director of Finance. So we're sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, are we not? If we take the 75,000 out of gas tax and use it this year, then we're going to be looking for 75,000 for projects slated for next year.
We will get another replenishment of gas tax next year, presumably. They haven't discontinued the program that we're aware of.
Yeah, okay.
I can add a bit more to that if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the gas tax, we, like I mentioned, we look at the whole 5-year capital plan when we're looking at funding. And although this year, it's really a timing thing sometimes this year at the end of the year. So we're spending, before this change, looking to spend about $776,000 of gas tax this year. So this will add another 75,000. And we have quite a fair, a reserve of gas tax on hand. So this is a good thing to be spending that. And then we get, annual contributions like the mayor had mentioned.
Yeah.
And so at the end of this year, we still have a balance and we have a projected expenditure for next year as well. And that's mostly going to be road rehab, it's all road rehab, which is where we've been prioritizing the gas tax. But at the end of next year is when we dip to zero, but we're still okay. And so as long as the funding keeps coming in, we've made sure that we're staying above, maximizing the use of gas tax within the 5-year window, but also of course staying above the amount used. And so that really the impact of using gas tax on these specific projects now would mean you don't have that available to use on a different project at different time.
Yeah.
That's really the impact. Yeah.
The gas tax is one of those projects, one of those funds that kind of interests me, and sometime I'm sure the federal government will look at it. But we have, for example, the regional areas get gas tax money as well, but they don't have as many places to spend it on, so they end up with huge gas tax reserves. And I won't go into my concern about those. It just means that they don't do roads, they don't do drainage, so that we have all those things to spend gas tax on, and so that's why we deplete our reserves, whereas the regional district does not have those costs. So they sit there wondering what to spend their wealth on, because it just keeps piling up every year. And not getting expended. So it's one of those interesting areas that I hope gets resolved at some point in time, because there are things that need to be done. And I think Councillor Ladwig, one of your ideas for intergovernmental is gas tax can be spent on. We don't have the gas tax to spend on that, but other areas of the regional district do have the gas tax to spend on that. And it would be nice. So it'd be one thing to do. So. Yeah, and I'll let somebody else investigate those reserves. Okay. So, Councilor Ladwig, based upon what you've heard and what you brought up, do you want to make a resolution, propose a resolution?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that, but I'm still, it's something along the lines of the Glassford and Gower Point Road traffic calming projects be covered by the gas tax. But I'd still like us to look at the transportation planning study as a first choice for the Gower Point Road project, because that is the grant that we originally received for that work.
Yeah.
And I think there's still a lot of planning to go on for the other 5 projects, or 4, whatever it is, that's supposed to be covered under that application. And so I think it's a little premature to say that there isn't any flexibility in that 645,000. So I'm not sure about my wording here, but I'd like to make a motion that the Gower Point Road project gets covered by the gas tax fund, and that the Glassford Road traffic calming project get covered by the gas tax fund if the transportation planning, sorry, no, wrong line. If the, what is it called, that project? The pedestrian cycle links fund is not a financial option based on further analysis of the other projects. How did that sound?
It sounds fine. The one going forward for budget purposes would be it would be done under gas tax, looking in the course of the year as the year goes through. If there's other ways to fund it, use the other funding first.
Correct.
Yeah, if it's eligible. Yeah.
If it's eligible. Yeah, and possible.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And that's seconded by Councilor D'Andrade. And so that would equate then to a 2.2% overall tax increase, that's the fill in the blank in your resolution there.
Yes.
2.2.
2.2, yeah.
I think that's an excellent achievement to get down to that level. I really congratulate council on that. Corporate officer.
Yes, I want to be sure that I have captured Councillor Ludwig's motion. I have that the Glassford traffic calming project be paid for out of the gas tax funds, and that the Gower Point Road traffic calming project also be paid for out of the gas tax funds, subject to, and I didn't capture the rest of that.
So
I think
I
it
think
relates. Yeah,
you
sorry.
reversed the two. I think you reversed the two.
Yeah.
Oh, did I reverse them?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that the Gower Point traffic calming project be paid for out of gas tax funds, and that the Glassford traffic calming project also be paid out of gas tax funds, subject to, and there was a condition you had about the pedestrian lane.
Yeah, subject to it not being eligible under the pedestrian cycle links fund upon further analysis and planning of that
Yeah.
project scope or something.
So subject to this project not being eligible for funding.
Sorry,
Can I just say, subject to this project not being eligible for funding from other sources?
no, I prefer that it be specifically about that pedestrian cycle links, because that we received $645,000 for that project along with 4 other ones, 4 or 5. And we still have a lot of planning to do around the 4 or 5 other ones. And I find it hard to believe that there isn't 41,000 that we could squeeze out of that. But until we do further analysis and planning around those other 4, we won't know for sure. So if it's possible, I'd still like to take it out of the pedestrian cycle links. If that's going to disrupt the planning for those other 4, then yes.
Good afternoon, Manuel speaking.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Oh, is he talking to us?
Not too bad, thank you. I just
Annie, I
too much
don't think
work, but other than I'm sure you know what that is like.
I'll get him.
No, it's okay, he's muted.
I muted him, Mayor Beamish. He's muted.
Okay, so Rebecca, do you want to maybe give it another crack?
Yeah, so let me try that again, because I'm still not sure I got the name of the pedestrian cycle project. Motion that Gower Point traffic calming project be paid for out of gas tax funds, and that the Glassford Road traffic calming project also be paid out of gas tax funds, subject to the Glassford Road project not being eligible for funding under the pedestrian cycle proposed
Cycle links
cycle.
fund. Yeah, cycle links fund
Cycle Links Fund. Thank you.
on further project planning and analysis.
On further project planning and analysis. Thank you. Sorry,
Thank you.
it takes me a while to get it.
No, thank you.
I just want to be sure everyone knows what they're voting on.
Councilor Dean Dredd.
Just a clarification, is it a matter of prioritization or eligibility? Because it doesn't seem that is eligibility. It's more subject to the results of the planning, whatever, the planning exercise, prioritization of planning. I think it's not eligibility.
You're correct. It's not eligibility. It's not probably the right word. Of course, I believe it's eligible.
It is, yeah, that's what I believe too.
So I don't know. You're right. Eligibility isn't the right word. It would be
Subject to the result, to the planning discussion.
Further planning and analysis
Yeah, further
of the other projects under the pedestrian cycle links fund.
yeah. Further analysis, yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's
Director of Finance would like to say. I have it.
Okay, I think we understand that. And then we have received this report. So if council has no further concerns and issues, and the recommendation that's on page 9 of the agenda package is that the 2022 annual tax rate be prepared, authorizing an overall 2.2% tax increase, and further that the 2022-26 financial plan bylaw and the 22 annual tax rate bylaw be prepared for council approval. Now that would be subject to the amendment we just done, taking the gas tax out, but I believe that the Director of Finance explained that. Okay,
Sorry, Mayor Beamish, if I might, I believe the Director of Finance is asking to speak.
okay, sorry, I don't see your hand up. So go ahead, Director of Finance.
Thank you. I don't mean to interrupt in the middle of
There you are. Okay, yep.
I don't mean to interrupt in the middle of a motion though, so I can wait until you pass it if you want.
No, are you comfortable with what we're saying?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to mention was I can provide the corporate officer with the pedestrian cycle links is part of a grant project. So what I can do is for the resolution wording, I can provide a copy of it's the Active Transportation Network Upgrades Project is what that's all part of.
Good.
And part of that is the level of eligibility versus flexibility in there. To me, will depend on what the application, level of detail the application went to. So I just wanted to point that out because it's really tied to a grant application. What I'll do is I will provide corporate officer with that wording that you can insert into the motion if council's comfortable with that.
We're
Just
comfortable with that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay, calling the question. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, thank you very much. And thank you, council. It's always a challenge to get this right. And I believe we've got it right for our community. I think it's important. So thank you for that. I understand there's some people concerned that we're losing the dog park this year, but it is in the budget for next year. We didn't use all the money. So there is that opportunity to bring that back in the next year's budget. And we'll see. Councilor D'Andrade?
The budget, just a clarification, the dog park budget, is it for the construction for fencing or also for the consultation? Because I remember we didn't even go through the consultation. So a suggestion, we could go this year through the consultation.
We took the money out for this year. The $25,000 was carried forward from last year. It's still in reserve for next year. You'll need to put money in next year for that consultation and then for more fencing. Yeah. Yeah. The consultation we left in this year was for the pickleball planning. Yeah. And see where that goes. So, okay, we've done that. The next meeting will be at the Committee of the Whole to be held on Tuesday, April the 5th at 3 p.m. And with that, I'll call
Mr. Mayor, sorry, I see the Director of Finance has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Keep missing that. Go ahead, Director of Finance.
That's okay. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to confirm the final budget presentation, the time and date of that, April 12th in the evening at 7 o'clock. Does that work for council?
April 12th at 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Last year.
Is that in concert with one of our regular meetings?
No, it's a non-meeting night.
Okay.
Yeah. So the recommendations go to council on the 5th, and that allows me to then put the bylaws in motion. And so then, as per last year, we did a week later, basically between a week later was the budget presentation. Again, it's really similar to the dialogue. I do a really high level overview. Last year, I think it took about 45 minutes. I did, 20 minutes and then an opportunity for public to ask questions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine on the 12th, so that it's subject to the rest of council.
Oh.
Councilor D'Andrade, go ahead.
I just want to be able to confirm later today because I don't have my schedule in front of me. But it is a meeting. It's just a meeting for the community, basically, right? It's the same kind of meeting that we had before, right? It'll
be different. It'll just be a presentation from the Director of Finance this time.
Okay, so that's fine. If I cannot, it's not something super important, but I'll try. Yeah.
7 p.m.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Ladwig.
Yeah, just quickly before we go, I really wanted to thank the Director of Finance for looking into that gas tax fund. I really appreciated her doing that kind of quick turnaround. So thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, and that's what's helpful, council, in providing those questions in advance, that they can be researched and looked at, especially when they're technical questions like that, when we know they're coming up at a meeting. That's a great way to do it. Thank you for doing that. Okay, all in favor of adjournment? Did we have a motion to adjourn yet? Well, Councilor D'Andrade, Councilor Lumley, motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you. We're adjourned. Thank you very much. And we have another meeting to go to, council. Now, that meeting doesn't start till 4 o'clock. We cannot start a meeting early. We can start a meeting late, but we cannot start a meeting early because it's an advertised meeting. So I will see you back here for 4 o'clock meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you.